it. So I hope that you're able to follow along and that you've been able to see some changes in your images already. But we're going to dive into some of my favorite parts of what I do with my images, and that is working with the burn, dodge, and saturation tool, which is right there, those three. So sometimes it might be on the lollipop, sometimes it might be on the sponge, and sometimes it might be on the little fingers that are doing the OK sign. But in this lesson, you want to make sure that those are going to be clicked. The other thing is this is also a good time to talk about brushes. So when we are working in these tools, and pretty much any of the tools, like a brush tool or an eraser tool, but pretty much any of these tools, we want to make sure that we are set up with a soft, round brush, not a soft, not an exact brush, but you want your brush to be soft and round. Okay, this will mean that you won't have any hard edges when you go to to make the adjustments. So I'll talk about that in a minute again, but you can see when you pull that brush file down, when it looks like this, nice and fuzzy, that means all around, that means it's soft. When it looks like you've got the hard edges, that means it's a hard brush. But guys, for the most part, I would say 99% of the time I'm working in a soft round brush. So you want to just pull down your brush menu, which is the file with the brushes, and that clicks down. The other way you can do it, I believe you can go into something up here and pull in brushes. I'm sure it's in one of these top. I don't know what it is right now, but I'm sure it's up there. But you want to just click on it, pull it down, and then click soft round. And then the way that we do the size of the brush, you can minimize this. I'm going to show you easy ways that you can do the size of the brush. You can see it's really tiny here. I'm going to click on my bracket, my right bracket, and I'm going to make it big. Or I'm going to click on the left bracket and I'm going to make it small. Okay, so this is just an easy way of making it bigger or smaller. Of course, you can come over here and do this with your size, but I'm going to tell you that this is going to be the easier way of doing it. So, my computer doesn't always love it when I play with large brushes, as you can see. So we're going to make it smaller. We're going to go down. It's going to give me a little bit of a fit. Okay. Come on, brush. Do your thing. Sorry, guys. It wigged out. If you have a Mac and you see that thing scrolling, it means that you're moving faster than your your computer is. Okay, so sorry, frustration. I never want to use a brush that is a 5,000 brush. Like, we just would never use that, and that's why it's see it's saying no, you went to, there we go. Okay. Sorry. Okay, I'm going to go back up to my screen. All right, we're going to start with let's start with this image. All right, so I'm going to go in. I opened up the image. You guys know how to open up an image. I'm going to come in and I'm going to crop to a 5:7 just so that everything is nice and even. So you see how I did that. Went into crop. My Ratio is set at 5:7. I'm going to pull it in just a little bit, and then I'm going to hit. You can either hit enter, return, or that check mark to get there. Then I am going to come into my curves, and I'm just going to bump up the whole curves just a little bit. All right. I like that. So then I'm going to do the levels. Going to come back into my layer, and I'm going to darken just a little bit. Not too much, because I like where I was, so you know, that was good. All right, so on this one, I'm good. I don't think I want to change. I'm not going to halo or lasso them. Lasso them. So I'm going to go ahead and flatten. Okay. Now comes the fun part. We are going to work with the burn and dodge and saturation. The first thing I'm going to do is work with the burn tool. And that means I'm adding darkness, blackness to an image that I want to. The other thing that I want you to be really, really cognizant of is up here, you can do, okay, I'm going to click on burn, my little burn tool. Up here, you can do shadows, you can do midtones, and you can do highlights. I hardly ever will burn a highlight. So just so you know, you don't usually do that because it'll make it gray. I burn midtones and shadows a lot. So I'm going to show you what I do with the midtones. So I want to increase my brush size, and I am going to do that by clicking on the bracket. The other thing that I want you to be really aware of is your exposure up here. We want to keep it pretty low, under 15. So I'm going to do 10. Actually, I'm going to do, for your purposes, I'm going to do 15. All right. So, and then I'm just going to slowly start brushing over the areas that I want to become a little bit darker. And you will start to learn what those are for yourself. Okay, so you see how I did that. I'm just brushing over it. The reason we want the soft round brush is that we don't want any harsh lines. Okay, I did the midtones. Now I'm gonna come into the shadows and say I want the soles of their feet to be a little bit darker. We're gonna and these darks to be pretty dark so that it adds dimension. Okay, over on their little dresses, aren't these the cutest little outfits? Sometimes, you just kind of have to play so you can see what the darkness does and adds for you. Okay, say you wanted all her boots a little bit darker. This is where you would do that. Okay, now if I want to make something a little bit brighter, so I want to make their pinafores, I'm still in my midtones. I'm gonna just brush over that a little bit, making sure that our exposure is where it needs to be. As you see, I'm not working in a layer. I am working right on the image. Okay, say I wanted to make this fur a little bit brighter, and I wanted to pick up some of the highlights, like on the bow. I can come into the highlight. I can lower my brush by hitting the left. And you see how I can come in and I can just pick up. You will start to see the highlights in your images. We want to lower the opacity. It was down. Lower that exposure. It was up to a little bit too high. Okay, so you see the highlights. So this kind of stuff all adds dimension to my image. So I'm going to lightly just go over it I don't want to make it like that one was too much, so I can come back up right here. Okay. But I do want to highlight parts of the bow, and you'll start to see the area. See how that I didn't like that, so I'm going to come over. All right, so I'm going to show you from the beginning of the image to the crop. Okay, we're just adding a little bit of dimension. So now I want to use the saturation tool. Okay, so the only thing on this that I would probably saturate a little bit, and again, really small doses. Okay, you really gotta, is maybe her little socks here, because I like the fact that they are golden, and maybe a little bit there. I mean, we're doing this in just little bits so that it just makes things pop just a little bit. If I wanted to bring out some of the yellow and golden in the background, this is how I would do it. So you see how it's pulling up some of that, which would coincide with the yellow in her socks. So I might do that just to kind of give it a little bit more of a yellow. I see those colors. It'll take you a little bit to see the colors in the image and what you might want to bring out or might not. At this point, I might want to darken the black a little bit, so I may go into my dodge tool, raise my brush, and just darken that part even just a little bit more, so I'm bringing more focus to them. Okay, I actually don't like that, so I'm not going to do that. Now, what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to raise them a little bit and lighten them all together. So Command J, go up to my lasso, make sure I'm at 250. I'm just going to kind of lightly do their bodies. Okay. These girls have a little bit of a darker skin tone, so I want to be careful of that. I'm going to come up to my curves, and I'm just going to bump them up just ever so slightly. Okay. You guys see? All right, let's see. So we are here to here. All right. Okay, so I'm going to go in and I'm going to save. Oops, save as. Make sure you're always saving in a JPEG. Okay. All right, let's do another one. All right, this picture. This is a really good picture to show you how dodging and burning will really work nice. You see how it's hazy down here? I'm going to show you how to fix that with the burn tool. Exposure wise, I like this picture. There's nothing, I don't need to change anything with my levels or curves at this point. And I also like the cropping. So for me, this picture, there's nothing I want to change. I like the way that it was cropped. I like the way that her face is exposed, so there's nothing that I need to do. So I'm going to come in, first off, I'm going to come in and I'm going to do levels, just a smidge. I'm not going to do curves on this one. I'm just going to do levels because I'm going to darken the blacks just a teeny bit. Okay. All right. Then I'm going to pick up my burn tool. Burn means I'm adding darks. And I'm going to make sure that the opacity, the exposure up here is set low. And I'm going to make my brush smaller. And then I'm just going to go over, whoops, I'm sorry. Okay, so if that doesn't work for you, like mine just didn't, your layers aren't flattened. So you need to come up and flatten the layer. If you see it's not working, for the burn, dodge, and saturation tool, you have to work on a flatten layer. So just come up and flatten your layer. Okay, and then you see how I just darkened that? No more haze. Yay! All right, so now this is the fun part where I get to play a little bit with, and this is a great, anytime I do urban, excuse me, pictures, this is where I can really show you what what these tools do, because there's so many colors in urban settings that you don't see until we start pulling them out. So you see I'm just really kind of playing with them, rubbing the, now I'm going to show you, say I don't particularly like that grass being that green, I can come up to desaturation, because it kind of takes my eye to there, and I can desaturate it. Okay, and so now it blends in better. Like down here, this little piece is going to catch my eye too much, and I don't like that. I'm going to come up here and I'm going to hit saturation, and I'm going to bring out some of the blue in the rock. You see, and then I'm going to do some mid-tone. So I went back into my burning tool, and I'm going to darken. Your whole goal is to make sure that your subject, or whatever it is that that your eye is drawn into a picture. And so, that's how I know what I want to do with the picture. It's not just about fixing it. It's about bringing my eye into the picture. Okay. So you see how we're doing that, and I'm going to come into the shadows and darken some of this stuff. All right, so this is a really good place to show you. Ooh, I see I don't like that, so I'm just going to come up. Ooh, that was too much. Some of the things I use burn and dodge tool in. So you see her hair and her necklace. I'm going to use my dodge tool, which is I'm adding brightness to. I'm going to pull out, again, small stages. I'm just going to pull out some of that so her necklace comes out. I'm also going to highlight some parts of her hair. Okay, we're doing this in really low exposure because we don't want big, we don't want it to look fake. We're just adding and enhancing. Some of the other things that you can do is, like on this rock right here, we can enhance some of the whiteness. Anything that's bright, we can enhance it, and it'll make it stand out in the image. So all of that. All right, I'm going to zoom. Okay. So we were here, and now we're here. Isn't that cool? I'm still going to keep going because I want to darken this part. Again, my goal is to bring, I want to draw into her face and her body, and so I'm just going to keep darkening around her. Okay, so now I don't like the fact that that's blue. So I'm going to come back into my desaturation tool. Make sure I'm on desaturation. It just doesn't look, I like it dark, I just don't like it blue. So now I am taking the desaturation, which means to take color out of the image. I'm sorry, I don't think I ever put that in there. When you are desaturating, we're taking color out. And I like that. Now, the other thing that I want to show you at this point, because we're working with darks and lights and the burn and the dodge tool, I want to show you also in saturation how you can change some of the color in this. There are two ways. I'm going to show you, you can do it through levels, through layers, and you come down in and then you would hit color balance, okay? And you can change the overall color of the image. Again, small changes, which I actually like that a little better. So I would come over here and snapshot it. So we're here, we were here, and then there. It just cooled it off a little bit. So I like that. So I can flatten that. The other way I'm going to show you, I'm going to introduce a new thing to you. So just kind of hold on. You're going to come up to, if you are in Elements, you won't be able to do this. Okay, so this is for one of the benefits of being in Photoshop. You're going to come up to Filter, and then you're going to go to Camera Raw. Okay. All right. So Camera Raw is another way of editing. You can edit quite a bit in Camera Raw. You can do your blacks, and I'm going to kind of do an overview of Camera Raw a little bit later, just so that you can see that you can do a lot of stuff in Camera Raw. But the one thing I want you to see is come over to this, it's 4 over, and these are your color sliders. And so for this picture, to me, it's a little red. Like I don't love orange brick very much. Like I think it, I don't want to take too much orange out of her or color out of her. So I'm going to keep the red in her skin, and I'm going to take down the orange a little bit, and I might bump up the blue. No, I don't like the blue. So I can take the blue down. You see how we did that? And now I can have my gray back so that it's nice and gray. I'm going to hit OK. And you'll see the difference. All right. Now, at this point, so you see where we are? Woo! Right? I can still play. If I don't like that red that's, popping out at me, then I can do that. If I want to come in and darken right here just a little bit more so that it kind of, I can, but I'm good with it. If I want to bring out that yellow right there in the brick, we're going to hit saturation, and we're going to, so there's a lot of color right here, and I can bring that out, and then right there. I personally don't like that, so I'm not going to do that, but I could. I think if anything, I'm going to desaturate right there. I don't really love the fact that that's bright red. So I'm going to, okay. So that's my picture. We started at this, and then we ended up with this. All subtly. Once you get the hang of this is not going to take as long. I promise you. It just in the beginning, it takes a little bit longer. Let me come in and save this as. Okay. We're going to do one more. Okay. So this image, it's a little bit overexposed, so I'm going to come in first. Actually, let me first, before we do that, I'm going to crop it. So when I crop, I always keep in mind my rules of thirds. Um, to me, it just makes a whole lot of sense in the way that my image looks. So they're taking up, the bottom part of this is taking up 2/3 and my top is 1/3, just so that it looks more interesting than putting them smack dab in the middle. And if you took camera class, that that we talked about that. I'm going to come into my layers. I'm going to hit curves. Now this picture is a little overexposed, so I need to bring it down just a little. And actually, so I like the green being a little bit darker, but I don't want them being darker. So I'm going to flatten, and then I'm going to create Command J or Control J to give me a new layer. We're going to come up to our lasso. We're going to make sure it's at what? 250. I'm going to circle around them. And I'm going to hit curves. And I'm going to bump it up just a little bit, just them. You see? I mean, I don't want, we don't want them like this, but we want just a little bit. Okay. I'm going to hit snapshot, and I'm going to flatten. So I like my sand and my foreground brighter than grayer. So for me, I always lighten with the midtones. So what I did is I came up to my lollipop. I'm going to midtones, and I'm just going to slowly brush over this. The other thing is that you will start seeing, you see how the sand has a little bit of a blue tone? I like to take that away a little bit. All right, so that's good. I'm going to come into my burn tool, midtones, and I'm just going to burn the grass just a slight little bit over their shirts, because I wouldn't mind those being a little bit. I am going to click my shadows, and I'm going to come in to their hair. No, you can see she's not in focus, so I probably wouldn't be doing all this if I had checked that. I'm just going to kind of darken their braids a little bit. I mean, I don't want to lose the fact that it's a braid, but I do want to make them kind of stand out. Okay. And see there, that picture is done. We were overexposed, and we're down to that. Pretty good. Let's see. I'm going to show you on this picture. We're going to crop into that sweet little face. Okay. I'm going to come in with my levels, and I'm just going to bring this over to the beginning. And we're doing good with that. Okay. I could do more with the levels, but I'm going to show you in the burn and dodge tools, because I want you to see how you can kind of achieve some of the same stuff, but just a little bit more control. I'm going to come in with my midtones, a really low flow, and I'm going to darken his sweater. Now, the thing is, guys, you don't want to lose detail, okay? So if you get to the point where you're losing all the detail in something, you've probably done too much, right? So again, the whole goal is to bring focus to your subject. So just keep that in mind. Okay. All right, I'm going to come into the burn, and I'm going to lower my brush by using the left bracket, and I'm going to come into some of these darker spots. Okay, that's too much. Don't like that. So I'm going to lower my, because I just don't want it to be like these black spots, but I do want to add some more definition to them. So So we're just going to kind of, I'm just pulling up some of the, and you can see where I'm taking over. And I'm just rubbing over the darks. Ooh, that's too much. Didn't like that. Actually, I don't like the last three things. So I just come back up. I'm going to pull up a little bit of a bigger brush. Okay, so you see how I don't like the way that that's looking. It's looking blotchy to me. So I'm going to come out of it and I'm just going to stick around on the outsides. And those of you who have taken a camera class know that I got all of that blur through where my focal point was, right? All right, so I think now what I want to do is darken this with a lasso tool. So Command J, Control J, whatever you're using. Lasso, 250. Whoop. No, we're going to come around. Sorry. Sometimes it does that. We're going to come around his face because I want to just kind of darken. And you can be so loose with this. And I'm going to just come into my curves. And nope. You know what I did, guys? Sorry. We need to inverse. So you need to reselect, then inverse. I'm sorry. And then we're going to come into my curves. And I'm going to darken. See how I pulled that down? Wow, look at his little face. I love that. Okay. I love this. I love where that came from. So we're here to here. You guys see the difference? I mean, oh my goodness. So now little things that I use the saturation and burn and dodge tool. This is not bad, but sometimes I'm gonna flatten because I need to be in a flatten layer. Remember, we're using burn and dodge tool. So you need to be a flat layer. Sometimes people's ears will pick up the light coming through, and so they'll often be orange. And so I desaturate that, and I'll desaturate around hairlines because I cannot stand orange skin tones. And so for the most part, his is pretty good, but if it was glowing, which you will see at times, you're going to come up with a really low flow up here in desaturation, and you're just going to lightly go over the parts so around hairlines will often be orange. So I'm just going to pick, desaturate around that ever so lightly, but in the long run, it'll make a huge difference on your picture. While we're talking about burn and dodge, burn tool, this is what I do sometimes with eyes. I'm going to come down with a really, really small brush, like really small. I'm going to come into my shadows and make sure I'm at a really low flow. And then I will go over the eyelash line just on the top. Okay. That just adds, we're doing that ever so slightly, right? We're not doing really darks. We're not making what I don't want to see is this, guys. I don't want to see this. Do not show me a picture where I see this really harsh line like that, okay? We're doing ever so slightly. So just like that. No, I didn't. We're just doing, so, no more than like an 8. And we're just going to do, like for his, we're just going to do the corners of his eyes, eyelashes. So that, I never sharpen eyes, but what I do is I do that to kind of make his eyes pop a little bit. He doesn't even need it, so I probably wouldn't even do it on him. But you can see where we are. If I wanted to kind of pull up a little bit of the blue, or an orange, I can come into my saturation sponge and pick saturation, and I can pull some of that orange out in the rock because I see it there and because he has orange on. I mean, come on. And we can make it all work together. Isn't that pretty? And I can do things like come into my highlights, and I can see in the cable knit, like ever so slightly, a little bit, you know, we're just talking really little things, right? Like on the button. Those are the things that will stand out. But I will tell you, like when I'm doing a portrait that's going to be big, I don't do these type of details on everything, but if I'm doing a portrait that's going to be big and blown up, I'm going to go in and do a lot of this stuff because I really want those little tiny details to be magnified and to stand out. So, like you can see, yeah. And this just comes with practice. You know, you're gonna learn what looks good and what doesn't. All right. So we started with him there, and look at him there. Isn't that great? Love that picture. All right. Sorry for my beeping. If you hear the beeping, I'm going to save this picture. And then, so what I want you guys to do for this next class is to practice everything that you've learned, but really work on your burn, dodge, and saturation. Okay? Upload some pictures. Let me know if you have any problems. Thanks so much, guys.